They chose me to say hello because I don't speak at all during the festival. So hello, welcome to our talk. We will begin with a little story. In Greece, there is a custom for the young children when they were born. In the first year, in the birthday of the first year, they put in front of them these four elements: a knife, a coin, a book, and a hammer. And they let the child far away, and they just watch towards where it will go and which object it will choose. And the elders then decide what this child will do in his life, or her life. So, a soldier, a merchant, a teacher, or a craftsman. It's an old tradition, so it is where you put the art. So, when I was 1 year old, they did that to me, and I chose the knife. And the people were strange, like, I come from a family with military people, so they thought, okay, I will be also a soldier. And they were expecting that from me. And I became a dancer. But I really think that I made the right choice. And here comes, you know the story, the phrase, that dance is a weapon. But I really believe that art is a weapon. And if I consider my life, I think the knife especially is my weapon, and contact improvisation is my knife. A weapon to cut society and find the point, to divide everything that is annoying, the fatness of life around me, to feel secure, to feel protected. So the question to all of you, and this is how we start, is just reflect your life and think, what is your instrument?
What was the coin again? I don't remember. Merchant.
What are these professions again? It's the warrior,
It's
the
how,
merchant,
it's how you explain it.
the teacher.
It's metaphorical, so you can choose, it's a knife, a coin, a book, and a hammer.
The killer, the
Other kind of
the
killer.
psycho killer, the
Intellectual killer.
I think the invitation here is, whichever one you picked when you were a child, then what kind of artist are you? The artist with the knife, the artist with the coin, the artist with the book, the artist with the hammer.
maybe I tell the
No, but someone keeps talking about a flower. Where's the flower?
maybe that makes me think of the Guattari story. Maybe I could tell the Guattari story now. So a few years ago, I read this little book by Félix Guattari, this French philosopher, called The Three Ecologies. It's a very short book, a small book, and these three ecologies for him were the personal subjective ecology, the social ecology, and the environmental ecology. And he thought that neither one of these ecologies can work out something without the other ecologies also working. And at some point in the book, he starts talking about art. And when he talks about art, he really says very bluntly that he is suspicious of the art of ecologists, let's say. I don't know if it's the flower art or... But anyway, and he said that the artists that he found very ecological for the subjectiveness, for the personal side, were people like the Marquis de Sade and Céline, the French writer Céline. Selim was a known fascist Nazi guy, a French one. And Mahmoud Saad, you know, I guess who he was. And I was very surprised by, what do you mean? What kind of art do you mean is ecological? And it's objectively ecological. And I'm reading it over and over. I think he means that an art which touches the viscera. Somebody goes inside the viscera, touches things which are not so easy in us, works them out, works through them, is the art that is going to get the pollution out of us. Something like that.
Viscera, the guts.
Yes, the guts, the darker parts, darker sides, the more difficult sides, troubled side.
To plan this 1 hour talk, we talked maybe 3 or 4 hours. All the other side conversations we had, where maybe only 2 of us were present. And one of the things that kept coming back was thinking about how many stories are available here in the group. And so we decided to ask 5 people to speak for a few minutes as part of this talk instead of us talking. And that's Rosalind and Amir, if Amir comes, and Martin, and Joanna, and I'm not going to say your name right, Islim. You can help us out. So each of these people is going to speak for 2 or 3 minutes about anything they want, and maybe they address directly what dancing is like from their perspective, or what the conditions of dancing are, and maybe they tell some other kind of story that obviously we know that whatever experiences we're living affects our dancing. So, thank you. Rosalind's going to go first. Thanks.
Wow, so much power. As you know, my name is Rosalind. I was born in Toronto and I grew up in Hong Kong, and I've been living in Beijing for the past 5 years, so I can share with you a little bit about the Beijing dance community. So I come in kind of as an outsider because I grew up in North America and also not in mainland China.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Not in mainland China, but just having been part of the growth of the contact community there, not only in Beijing, but within a China-wide contact festival. I've been really privileged to see some interesting patterns over the years. I think 3 things I'd love to share with you. The first thing is just the incredible growth, the surprising growth of contact there. I think, you know, there's always been dancers who've been traveling mostly to the United States since the 90s and maybe sharing in a kind of private dance troupe setting. But when I took my first contact class with Irene Sposetti and Johan, actually in 2013, like, there were no regular jams within mainland China. And so since then, Beijing Regular Jam happened in 2014, and now in 2018, there's regular jams in 6 cities: Guangzhou, Shanghai, Shenzhen, Chengdu, Xi'an, yes, Hangzhou. So we're really, really lucky to also have a festival that connects all these cities together. And if you want to learn more, welcome you to come talk to me, or Irena, and also Uli, who also has traveled to China. And there's also Lian Zai, who's another mainland Chinese dancer. So that's just really, really positive and encouraging to see. I think one of the reasons why contact has just really taken on there is because for a lot of people, like, your only social communities are your family and your work, and you don't really have any physical contact or anything. You don't even have flying kisses or hugs with anyone outside of those communities. And so Contact is just such a wonderful, non-judgmental, safe and loving place for people to kind of receive touch from strangers and friends. And so that is really, really powerful. One of the challenges is obviously that just being, there's a lot of barriers to intimacy, especially with the opposite sex. But another opportunity that I notice is just that with teaching Chinese dancers, they're really, really open, in my experience, to just talking about listening and kind of the spaces in between the dance. One time I was trying to explain to a dancer about like the concept how no one is supposed to be the boss, that there's no leader to follow, that there was an external force kind of leading the dance, and they were like, oh yeah, like chi, right? And I was like, yeah, exactly. So there's a really, really a beautiful opportunity there, and a beautiful kind of confluence of ideas, and so yeah, that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
I'm Islam from Egypt. I don't know, I find it a bit hard to talk about, to talk a bit about my country, as if I wouldn't say everything about my country, and as if, because most of you maybe, they don't have the chance to see Egypt, so it feels a bit, weird that the first impression for you about Egypt would be through me. That's a lot of pressure. Okay, I try to work louder. So, I mean, it's also, I feel lost a bit if someone asks me, what would you like to say about art in Egypt? What do you mean? So I would prefer rather to answer some questions that have been asked frequently in the last 3 or 4 days. One of them is, do you have contemporary dance in Egypt? Yeah, we do. Are you allowed to dance in Egypt?
Yeah, we are.
Yes, we are allowed to dance. I mean, it might seem a bit that it's a kind of religious, conservative country, and that people are not really so much into their bodies, and that lots of restrictions between the body and the mind, and that just people are allowed more to practice the physical practices inside the rooms, which is somehow true. It's also really not correct to talk about something general for the whole Egypt. Egypt has this, I guess I would say, a different social structure than most of Europe has. I would say it's really diverse, really diverse from one city to the other. Yeah, we have more spaces between the social classes, much more spaces. You can find really some poor people who are living next to really rich people. And based on how money you have, sometimes your experience of Egypt would be. So you get more access to more services and stuff based on how money you have sometimes. Which is dance is one of them, because dancing classes are really expensive, as you know. So yeah, it's hard to generalize something about all Egypt, but I would talk more about Cairo now, which is most of the cultural scene is happening and the artistic scene is happening. Yeah, because it's the capital and the center. So yeah, I mean, starting from since the revolution, if you heard of 2011, I would say more actions is happening in the country, and more, it's as simple as the people started to go to the street to say something. So also some other people started to go to the studio to try to say something. It's exactly the same way. And people started to, we need to maybe make it more organized. Because before it was more than just individuals who were doing something by themselves, but after it was more like we need to arrange our efforts, to make some organizations, to make it more structured, to make some education, some events, some festivals. And actually lots of these things happened after the revolution, One of them is the contemporary dance school I'm studying in. It literally started in the year of the revolution, 2011. Yeah, the manager of it, or the founder, she's also a contemporary dancer. She was based in London. And just like she did, as many Egyptians who were living outside did in the year of the revolution, they all like came back to Egypt to see what's happening. Maybe the country is coming back again. So yeah, she came back at this year and she started this school. And since then, the school is working. It's 8 years now. So already one generation has graduated. I'm studying in the second generation. And it's just, yeah, it's a professional dance education for 3 years, every day, 6 hours per day. We have dance teachers, men and women, together in the same room. We touch sometimes. Yeah, maybe not a lot because it's a bit hot. Yeah, I try to be good. Yeah, so it's yeah, I would say in Cairo it's quite normal it's quite normal for women to dance, to do whatever they want. If they want to dance, they do. If they don't, they don't. As I heard from some people, yeah, a lot of people have the idea about how religion is taking over all over Egypt, but maybe you hear this in the media, but it's not really true. I mean, yeah, women can just, yeah, can almost wear what they want. I mean, we have some social traditions in a way, so I guess you don't really, for men and women, you don't really wear hot shorts, I would say, but still you can, yeah, you can do whatever you want. You can, as long as you're kind of aware of the social context. We don't kiss in the street, unfortunately. But yeah, so yeah, dance is happening in Egypt, contact is happening. Contemporary dance is quite based and quite, we have some research, we have really something that's happening regularly. Some festivals during the year, like 3 or 4. Some Egyptians now start to do their own research, their own method in research and dance. And it's already going in some performances, and you can see now, I guess, somehow a bit of Egyptian character in this area. In contact, it's quite less, I would say. It's it's really a small community. Not lots of professionals are interested in contact, as far as I know. So actually, we're missing something, which is some professionals to push the contact scene. I mean, we tried, for example, in the last 3 months, 3-4 months, to do some jams, which like 3 jams happened in the last 3-4 months. And we tried to test something and to see like how people would be interested. And actually many people, many non-professional people have attended the jams. It was like 30-40% in one room. So now we realized somehow that the people are interested, but it's somehow our job to offer classes or workshops. Yeah, I mean, to push somehow the thing. Yeah, thank
you. Before we go to the next 3 speakers, there's some paper. If it helps you to listen, to be writing or drawing or capturing some words that come by, or to make questions that you have while you are listening, you are welcome to do these papers. Joanna.
Hello, I'm Joanna, and actually I think you asked me to speak about something very specific. I mean, of course I could also talk about something else, but I think you kind of asked me to speak about maybe what is the difference between this kind of internationality and diversity, or do we only have diversity because this is an international festival, because I'm a German person, born and raised in Germany. And I think this festival was the first time that I danced with a non-white person at a jam, but But then to still think that the non-white person I danced with was an international person. So I think that's just something that I was asked to make visible, and I'm going to say it with my own voice, just for you to think about this, because of course Germany has a big non-white community, history of guest workers, Black Germans, Afro-Germans, if you want to say, and that's maybe all I can represent in a way. And as I'm saying this, the more and more I actually deal with this, the more I think about this is actually though still what I want to make visible, or what I ask people, or what I think is maybe a better strategy is to make whiteness visible and not so much to speak about blackness. So this is another term I'm just going to throw into the room just to think how whiteness is mostly perceived as the norm. So for white people to walk into a room and that everything the teacher is white and all the other students are white, that's a privilege that I most of the time don't have, and I also have not been taught here. I mean, I've only been here 3 years, but by a non-white teacher. So those are just things I want to just throw into the air and make visible. Yeah.
I will say it in German first and then in English. Martin sagt, ich tanze seit 7 Jahren, seit 7 Jahren Kontaktimprovisation, und den zweiten Teil habe ich nicht verstanden, aber und ich erlebe die Menschen hier als sehr offen. Aber auch auf den Festivals bin ich fast immer der Einzige mit einer körperlichen Behinderung. I'm Martin. I'm dancing contact improvisation since 7 years, and I experience the people here as being very open towards me and with me, and at the same time, even at contact festivals, I'm usually the only person with a physical disability or in a wheelchair. Und ich frage mich, warum das so ist. Eine Antwort ist, dass die Jams oft nicht barrierefrei sind. And I'm asking myself, why is it like that? And one answer that I found is that the jams are usually not accessible for people on wheels.
vielleicht Menschen rausgehen, die nicht auf den Boden setzen können, einbezogen werden können.
Ich frage mich auch, inwieweit Menschen im Rollstuhl, die nicht auf dem Boden tanzen können, einbezogen werden könnten. I'm also asking myself how people in wheelchairs who cannot dance on the floor could be included into the dance. Ist ein Rollstuhl hinderlich? Ein Rollstuhl ist nämlich etwas sehr Hartes, ein harter Gegenstand, und das steht im Gegensatz zu den sehr flüssigen Bewegungen. Is a wheelchair an obstacle? I'm asking. And I'm asking that because a wheelchair is a very hard object, and it seems to be opposed to the fluid movements that we do in this dance.
Auch weniger bewegen als ich kann. Ist das ein hinderliches Gedanken?
Und viele Menschen mit Behinderungen können sich auch weniger bewegen, als ich es kann. Ist das ein Hindernis zu tanzen? And many people with disabilities are less able to move than I am. Is this getting in the way of being able to dance?
Gibt es einen Unterschied zwischen Tanzen und bewegt werden?
Gibt es einen Unterschied zwischen Tanzen und bewegt werden? Is there a difference between dancing and being moved around?
Wenn ich tanze, erlebe ich manchmal, dass ich nur bewegt werde, dass mir überhaupt keine Freiheiten gelassen werden, mich selber zu bewegen, wie ich will. Und für mich ist das kein Tanz.
Wenn ich tanze, erlebe ich es oft, dass ich dass ich nur bewegt werde und mir überhaupt keine Freiheit gelassen wird, mich selber zu bewegen, so wie ich es kann und will. So when I'm dancing, I sometimes experience that people are just moving me around and that they don't leave me the freedom to move myself as I am able to and want to. Das sind Gedanken, die zur Anregung. These are thoughts to inspire you.
Ich hope auch keine Antworten.
Aber ich habe auch selber keine Antworten. But I myself don't have the answers.
Hello everyone. I will speak about the dancing scene in Palestine. And the contemporary dance scene is very new there. It started maybe in 2002 by a dance company who were doing traditional Palestinian dance, which is called dabke. And a Belgian dance company come to Palestine called La Palaisie de la Paix, and they started trying to mix contemporary dance with the traditional Palestinian dance. And from there, Palestinians were inspired to start the contemporary dance scene and organized the first contemporary dance festival in 2003 by Sariyat Ramallah Contemporary Dance. From there, contemporary dance started in parallel with traditional Palestinian traditional dance. Until now, it's not very separated, so we don't have really a pure, let's say, contemporary dance scene. We don't have any contact dance community in Palestine. So you can imagine this is our first experience. What is really special that even in Palestine you don't have many body contact, because we are living in a very conservative society, which is religion plays a big role, community playing a big role, and politics play a big role. If you live in Palestine, politics is a part of everything is happening in our daily life. And the questions the big question I asked to myself when I came to Europe, what does politics did for our bodies as Palestinians? Because when I came here, I saw many diversity. You can see people from all around the world, but if you live in Palestine, you see only Palestinians. Because we are restricted by a wall and more than 100 checkpoints, and if you want to travel from Palestine to anywhere, the only way to go to Jordan, and you have to pass 3 checkpoints, Palestinian, Israelis, Jordanians, and it takes you 8 hours. And if you go by car without checkpoints, it takes you only half an hour. So that's one thing. And the other thing is living in a very conservative society, which is restricting all your movements, body movements. So I was asking myself, why Palestinians' body, they all look the same. We all walk the same. We all somehow dance the same. That was a big question. Like when you came here, you see people they walk different. But in Palestine, you can tell this is a Palestinian if you see them in Europe. So this is played a big role, I think, in the dancing scene, because what is really special is the Palestinian's body is even different than the bodies in the world. The way that we move is very different. And I was in Munich before I come here, and I took a workshop with Hildegard, a dramaturge working with Alain Platel, and she told me that she was in a jury in a dance school in Belgium. Like 900 applicants came to and she noticed that they are all have the same body, the same movements. Even if you come from Korea or from South Africa, this is what globalizations are. You can ask yourself, like, why is? Because everyone took the same workshops, played with the same. And this, then I started to think about if you bring someone from where we live who has never had any experience of contemporary dance, we only do Dabke traditional dance, and our dance is just you use the shoulder and the legs, and this, and like this part of your body you don't use at all, and when you have. So it's just a lot of questions you ask to yourself. What is politics, society doing to our body, and how you can use it to make something special in the dance scene. Thank you.
So Keith passed me the mic, and I actually, because of what you just said, tell me your name again. Amir. I remembered a speech from a Mozambican choreographer that I just heard very recently, which really spoke also about the influence of his society, the politics in his society, the history in his society, the influence of all of that in the bodies of his family. So he's like 40 something, not like 40 little. He has some kids already, and so he said his father was living during the Portuguese dictatorship. Portuguese colonial moments in history. So his body was completely influenced by this colonial system and regime and so on. Then, with the independence, Mozambique became a communist country. And so they lived in a very militaristic type of communist regime. So Panaibra, which is his name, actually went to school. I had no idea about this because he does contemporary dance, and I never saw a militaristic thing in his body at all. But actually he mentioned that in school, he grew up in a school which had this militaristic communist thing going on. And now he has these kids, and his kids are totally involved with their iPads and their games and so on. So in 3 generations, Mozambican generations, very recent ones, you have 3 completely different bodies, and he's working on those different bodies. That's like his issue. And I thought that was super interesting, and it really, of course, brought it to me back.
I don't know if we continue with our program that we plan, or what are we doing next? There was a question that we asked in many kinds of ways. There was also a small study group that met in the trees today where this question was very alive. I think I just want to say again, thank you to each of the people who spoke. Just thank you. Yeah, these questions of to move and be moved, the relationship of how does a nation build a body, and then how does that body dance, and then how does dancing change the body, and then how would a danced body change the nation? Just one thing that's happening with these kinds of conversations. I've been thinking a lot about what is the kind of touch that you grew up with, which is what's coming up with many of the speakers here. And then what is the kind of touch in this space? What is the distance between these cultures of touch? And was it a big jump to get here, or was it a small step to get here? So, all that question is in the room, is in the circle. The question we were asking today, in many ways, was, is the space that we build with this dancing, is contact improvisation a way to escape the politics of society? Maybe even, is it reactionary, like a step backwards from certain kinds of politics? Is it actually subversive, like subversive meaning, is it undercover, like not obvious politics, like it's not street activism, but is it another kind of engagement with politics? How else did we ask this question? One that came up that was in the reading that we did this afternoon was, if people come to contact because they are trying to escape or flee something else, what are you leaving? What did you leave to come here? Were you moving forward or were you moving backwards to come here?
Yes, the moving backwards maybe one.
Damn, I wasn't listening really. But I think that I was listening, but I had this idea which you might not like. Well, we are in Germany, and we Greeks love some Germans. Some Germans. But we really love them. And there is one guy that we really love. I don't know, probably you don't love him. He's like, he has a beard, and he's like a father figure, and his name is Karl. And this guy has said that the meaning is in the way of the production. So, when we are talking about contact, I try, or I really sense where it is being produced, how it is being produced, and that's how, and there is the meaning of contact for me. So, I don't know if I answered your question, but yes. When
I just want to make sure that we understood, that everyone understood, or more people could understand, that maybe the meaning of contact is not in the content of the dancing, but if we look at how it is produced, and that maybe that is the meaning of the contact. It's a way to look at things, thanks to our German friend Karl.
Really, if you want to read Marx, don't read it in German. Read it in American. Sometimes they're good. What I mean is, the festival is great. Really enjoy. No, wait. There was an image this afternoon that really hurt me. Really, I have great time in the festival. And this afternoon, while we were talking during kids, 50 meters away from the entrance, there was a disabled girl with 3, I think they were Turkish or Arab, I think Turkish women. And they were bringing her to the lake. So they were somehow molesting her, like wiping her and catching her hand. She was quadriplegic and she was crying, and they were fixing her. And that was happening 50 meters away from the festival, which is great. And we treat very well Martin, and he's one of us. But like 50 meters away, there was this thing. And they just passed in front of the festival, and they went to the lake, and actually after that. So, where it is being produced is great, but like 50 meters outside, there are monsters in hell. So that's why I mean that where is the production? Yes, there is a result, but we must see where it is being produced. This is not a critique to the festival, okay? Just to know the limit.
Mm-hmm.
So you all are Marxist, you agree?
Run this way. Okay. Now they're both on. Yeah, I think we open the floor to hear questions, comments, and let's be sensitive to time without censoring, but there's a lot of people. So, yeah, what's happening? What are you thinking about? Where's the body at? How do all of these different, whether it's the hammer, the book, the coin, and the knife, whether it's Felix Guattari and the art of the viscera and not the art of flowers, whether it's the stories from around the world and even down the street. What's happening? What are you thinking about? Maybe we take a minute and then we will take some questions and comments. You can always move from outside to inside, you can come to paper. If you're going to speak, maybe say your name before you speak also. Hello.
Hi, Alexita, you can say. So I was wondering what would be, or what we have to do as a next concrete step to make this, to actually to open up maybe this confined space of festival or of CI, so that we have, maybe we can also exchange a bit more with the monsters outside and teach them a bit about these kind of qualities we experience here, not like over-teaching, but just sharing them, and also how we can make this community, which still exists in some years, more open, that we have more people who are maybe in wheelchairs, or who have different kind of skin color, or also that my grandmother might come, like older people and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm curious on that question.
Sorry, I'm going to use you now as an example. And I'm going to say what you said, Elise. I don't want to criticize the festival, but I'm going to criticize you now. Also in relation to what she said. Because, for example, your example, did you need to mention the assumed origin of the people that you were talking about? I don't think that had anything to do with or I don't know whether it had anything to do. Maybe it's just a question. And now we're speaking about them as monsters, so I find this very problematic. And that's maybe a way to start thinking. That's all I can say about this when we speak about people outside or people inside.
Before we respond, what I want to do is, it's great to increase the temperature. But there is an agreement that's good in this kind of talk, which is to expect non-closure. We did not come to this circle to resolve something. We came to hear the comments, hear critique, hear program or solve it. So excellent question, excellent response, right? We keep it moving, but we're not trying, people could try not to solve problems by speaking. Yeah. Put the microphone right at your mouth and say your name.
Hello, I'm Jonathan.
Right at your mouth.
I'm Jonathan, I live in London, England. I just want to thank again all of the speakers. I found some of your stories really moving, which isn't really the point, but I was just, in our conversation, the conversation that Keith referred to at lunchtime today, some of us were speaking and we didn't mention the word privilege once, which we thought was maybe an oversight. And I'm just reminded of the story that Amir told of a journey that in a car without borders would take half an hour, took you 8 hours. And this seemed to bring to me this notion of privilege and how this is something that I should remind myself of. And perhaps we should remind ourselves of how others' journeys are far more difficult and ours are made easier sometimes by the difficulty of theirs.
Lizzie, it's just a quick comment about the we. I'm not sure I can relate to the we inside relating to the other outside. Yeah.
Wow.
Marilis, I have a question about CI politics. I guess you already answered. What would you say is what is the political aspect of CI, or what would you point out?
Maybe this is a question for 2 or 3 people to think about and answer while we are going along.
Because the word monsters came up, I just wanted to say I've only just discovered CI about 2 months ago. And just jumped into it because I did this jam and it was just horrendous. And I knew I have to face my own, I knew this is the next step. This is the practice I need to do, which helps me to face my demons. So it's really about facing my own monsters in myself, and it doesn't, I think, it doesn't matter where I grew up. We all have them. And I have a long history of, I don't know, I've lived on a place which we occupied in Hamburg, which was a radically feminist place where there were only lesbians and there were no men allowed. And it was always, and then there was a transsexual, and then all these discussions just constantly there. And we don't know about this Egyptian girl. I work in a school with children with special needs, and after my first contact class, I came to school and I was like, oh yes. And you know, we have to get them to do a lot of things. And I also have a son who doesn't ever do what I want him to do, and he's very special. And I think sometimes people think, oh my God, his mom, she's just horrendous. And I think I am. I look horrendous, and I probably am sometimes. But it's just all this judgment, and I know I have to do this. I really have to. And I'm here with my partner who's sleeping, and which is a way of sleeping, I think. You know, and we have this going on. There's a lot of stuff going on. He's crying all the time. I'm really sorry. So yeah, so there's so much going on, and I think it's really important to be open, and I really love listening to you all, and I love listening to Martin, and it's difficult to understand you, but I love everything when really quiet when you talk. And you were in my group, and the other day you were starting the jam, and I had to go out, and I was looking for you if you're there. I thought, if you can do it, I can do it. And you weren't there, so I just went and lied down. So, you know, it's just where we get inspiration and how do we... But I'm also fed up of always thinking I'm so privileged. You know, I can tell you the stories why I'm so unprivileged and what has happened in my life, but I've already talked so much long, so thank you.
Also, in referring to how we listened to each other and how the listening changed for each speaker was very beautiful. But Gesine, you played a really important role in that, so thank you also.
I'm Rianne. I've been here for, I think this is the 8th day since I was also here for the teachers' meeting as a helper. What Konstantinos said just reminds me on a very simple level of how, for me, this is a strange space. I find it very hard to leave here. I don't know if other people are experiencing the same thing, but there is this feeling when you're here that you're not actually in the middle of a town or a city or just, and even when you see people crossing, you know, very close by in the park or under the trees, are they in the festival? And if they're not in the festival, there's kind of like something that happens in your brain that it's almost like other people don't exist or nothing else exists. So I'm just wondering why that is. What is it about the space that makes you feel like there's nothing beyond it? Is there something that can be, is there something that should be done or can be done to change that? Is that the same in other festivals, similar festivals, or is it to do with the space or what we're doing here? I don't know. Yeah, I'm just wondering about that.
We started at 8:20. So if we are 1 hour, we stop at 9:20. I don't know if you want to say something or if organizers tell us to go till 9:30 or where we at. Because there's plans for the evening, including a focus jam plan for the space. So do we say the last 3 comments? And they have to be brief, not stories, but just like this, one idea that you have or one question that you have? 3? You want to speak?
Yeah, it's not about defending, it must to take it further. A story. 8 years before I was born, my mother gave birth to a child, a girl, and she had a problem they never explained what problem they had, but it's not clear if it was mental or health, but they put her in a hospital for minds, how do you call it? Mental health. The child stayed for 4 years and then she died. And that was in the family a taboo. I don't even know why she died and what she had. And my mother wasn't Turkish or Arab, she had blue eyes and she was Western. And she was a monster, of course. And she was poor and uneducated. And the system around her couldn't help her. When I mentioned the story before, and I said that they might be Turkish or Arab, it was to point a problem that I know in Western there is a system to accept the refugees or the emigrants, but I'm not sure how they are open structures for them, for all the problems that there are in their families. And at least I have seen like Syrian refugees disabled to pass them and send them in Germany, and I don't know how they are being taken care of there. So my point, it wasn't like that they are Arabs or Turkish, but they were like people outside of the system of healthcare or education in this country. That was my point.
It's 1 here. Oh, sorry. I'm just going to go 1, 2. We said 3, and we stop there.
Hey, I'm Erin. Briefly, what what is the politics of CI, contact improvisation? What's occurring to me now is it's a practice of choice making and participation, and thinking about what that means and how that shifts on an individual level, observing how that affects a group and vice versa. An extraordinary experience for me of practicing the relationship between the self and another, as well as how that affects and is affected by a larger group. Examination of growth, constant reminder of other options available. And like horizontally learning that for people.
Is Julieta. I am 7 days or 5 days before with the pre-workshop of Vera. I'm Dutch, but I'm from Argentina. No, I'll never be Dutch. I've been asking this to myself for several days since I've been here in the festival, is how we reproduce some of the economical system here in the festival. I'm not talking about the organization, I'm talking about as persons. I cook to you all the breakfast. Teamwork. It's not good to have. There is a song in Argentina that says "El lujo es vulgaridad," something like